Welcome everyone to another Lunch and Learn webinar for our Northern BC Restoration Community of Practice. I am calling in, as usual, from Treaty 8. I live in Blueberry River and Doig River First Nations traditional territory, and I'm happy to see some names from all across Northern BC and beyond. If you're new, you're welcome, and you're one of us. The Community of Practice is a group of organizations and individuals, and our purpose is to build restoration practitioner effectiveness and capacity through improved knowledge sharing, communication, and collaboration, among other things. We're guided by an organizing team with core members from CERN BC, the Fish and Wildlife Compensation Program, the BC Wildlife Federation, and the Caribou Habitat Restoration Fund via HCTF. This webinar is being recorded in its entirety, and you'll be able to watch it later on CERN's YouTube channel. Today, we're joined by Doug Casimel, who is the Toonasa and Keyah Stewardship Department Manager, Stellat'en First Nation, and he's going to tell us a bit about his thinning project to benefit land, community, and ungulates. Take it away, Doug.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. As May mentioned, my name is Doug Casimel, Manager, Toonasa and Keyah Stewardship Department with the Stellat'en First Nation. I've been in this role for about 5 years. We're trying to build a lands department in Stellat'en. As folks know, right now, the forestry industry is in a really challenging era, and we're trying to work through that. In our traditional territory, we've had some really big challenges. We've had 2 huge fires. We've had the Island Lake fire and the Shovel Lake fire. These were both tens of thousands of hectares fires. Actually, CERN BC helped us come up with a kind of a plan to work through the aftermath of those fires. So we've worked with CERN on those projects. But that's really affected the forestry in our region. And then we have a lot of monoculture pine plantations, and a lot of those plantations are not going to be mature for another 30 or 40 years. So just like places all over BC, we're seeing this kind of need for thinning. We're working with foresters. We got a grant from the College of New Caledonia, and it was their, what was it? Sorry, I'm just going to move. I've got notes here. And it was part of their research forest granting section. And we got a little bit of a grant to do this community pilot project. And we're working through it. It's been a little bit slower, and I'll kind of talk about it as we go through the presentation, really, because our current policy it's not really designed to promote thinning in the forests. So that's one of the challenges that will be highlighted as we kind of move forward. But the name of the presentation is Cultivating Community Forests, Community Thinning Vision for Ecosystem and Cultural Renewal. Just sharing our vision. Like everyone else, we want a healthier forest, more biodiversity, want to support nature and culture. We'd like to have this work our community be a big part of it and help to design it. We'd like to have our values act as a foundation for a lot of this work. So what makes our project a little different is that so we're very interested in community or forestry thinning, so that we can create a healthier forest. We can increase biodiversity, we can increase fire resilience, but we also want to add. So we'd like to not only promote kind of the growth of shrubs and trees and medicinals that are already there, but we'd like to order some different bushes and plants from greenhouses and try to promote their growth. And maybe we'll collect seeds annually and then just kind of try to promote more biodiversity and plants and shrubs and bushes within the thinning corridors. So that's just a little addition that we like. We'd like to promote, some willow and alder and different things for the ungulates so that the moose and deer have something to eat. But we're also like to plant some bushes for berries for folks and also medicinal plants. So that's just an addition that we'd like to add to our community kind of thinned forests. We know this kind of thinning is improving the habitat for moose and deer. We want to encourage, our traditional plants and foods. It helps with fire resilience, and in the end, it seems to make a happier, healthier forest. So that's something that we're interested in. Again, we just want that community involvement, harvesting berries, walking in the forest. So creating creating forests that people can use. So sometimes if you've went out for a hike and you've hiked through some of the forests in BC, you know that it can be pretty challenging unless you find a trail. But what we're hoping is that with some of this thinning work, that we'll be able to create forests that are accessible, and not only are accessible, but people are rewarded when they go there by being able to harvest berries or medicinals, and making it easier for the animals too. So that's kind of a little bit of our vision. We have identified challenges. Um, some of the challenges, we really look to some of the Scandinavian countries who've done this work before, and they've kind of dialed it in. And then when we look at the Scandinavian countries, and then kind of look at, let's say Canada, we're seeing where there's a few things that are missing, right? Like the second point here, um, we don't have the infrastructure to use some of the forest residue that's created. So in Scandinavia, some of that forest residue might be used for district heating. So communities might have been designed with a big boiler that can burn forest residue, and then that heat can be used in a district heating system. So that lowers their kind of costs, and it just helps their community, throughout the winters. Um, and then some of that residue may go to pulp mills and stuff like that. Here, there's so much space between communities, and our communities really haven't had that they haven't been designed with that district heating kind of idea there. So we're kind of playing with this idea of a hybrid solution, being able to, can we add a district heating system to an existing building that may have a different heating system? It could be forced air or something else, but is there a way to put a kind of a biomass kind of a boiler, um, and get heat and circulate it through the building, through an alternative means? So that's one of the way ideas we're kind of exploring and thinking about. Um, it also seems like, it's not the old forestry model. So you're not just cutting down trees and selling them, and BC's getting their stumpage rate. It's a little different. You're getting smaller wood. You've got to be creative with what products you're going to get from that wood. Is that going to be fence posts, or what are you going to get from that wood? We've got to be creative, but it doesn't seem like the economics. It's not like regular forestry, so there may be public investment involved. So that's a bit challenging. Um, Also, policy evolution. On this project, we should have been able to do this whole project in 2 years. We're going on 4 years now where we haven't been able to complete it because we haven't been able to do it in such a way within the forest policy. Um, one way, if we followed the forest policy, I think we would have been paying $50,000 to do the work. We just haven't been able to kind of find the right way that we can do the work And we're not after, we don't want to make a bunch of money, but we do want to not have to pay money at the end of the day. We're working with West Fraser. We've identified a block. We're ready to do it, and we're just in the final phases of the permitting. But it hasn't been easy. The forestry kind of system isn't designed for thinning. It's people, I think it's been people understand it now, but our policy hasn't evolved to embrace it yet. So that's still a bit of a challenge. Um, again, that infrastructure, lack of district heating or pulp mills, um, needing government like public support or government like public dollars or government support to make it a reality. I think that would help to make that happen. So a little bit about the Scandinavian model. Um, this is a picture of a bit of an open house we went to a couple of years ago just outside of Prince George. Freya Logging, they're really big advocates of thinning and forestry around Prince George. They hosted this event. And then I think we had Ponzi, kind of a Scandinavian equipment company that was part of it too. And they just had the community come out and look at thinning and look at some of the machinery and have a day out in the field, which was really nice. And I just touched on this before, then in some of the Scandinavian countries are using this waste residue for heat. Um, they've got their public policy and they've got infrastructure there that makes thinning more economically viable. Thinning is viewed as a long-term investment in forest health and resilience, and its integrated forest economies allow this low fiber to support local energy systems and then rural economies. So, um, they've kind of evolved with and they manage their forests in a different way. So they're able to do this in such a way that they're just managing the kind of the health of their ecosystem and their forest in a good way. And we're hoping that we can, do some of this ourselves. So here's just a bit of a graphic on something that we'd like to do is we'd like to explore local biomass potential, small biomass heating for some of our infrastructure in our community. Making sure that the health center, if the grid went down in the winter, that we'd have a backup power system. The biomass heater would also kind of lower the cost of heating in the winter in our the main buildings in our community. Um, yeah, so this is one of the things that we're quite interested in. We're looking for some grants and some different things to kind of make this a reality. We're building this into our community energy plan and just trying to think of a more sustainable and resilient future, and also looking at climate change and those challenges. Um, we've had some big forest fires in our area. We need to be resilient to that threat. There's also flooding in our little community. We've got to figure out how we work around flooding. And then we have, long winters and cold winters. Often worried about what happens if the power goes down in the middle of the winter. How do we work through that? And just finding resilient and redundant systems is a smart way to kind of plan for the future. Also looking at carbon credits. It's still kind of evolving. We would like to find carbon credits that were a little shorter time frame. So oftentimes we see that they're 100 years. We were involved with trying to help BC develop their current carbon credit regime. They really didn't take a lot of the advice that we were sharing with them. We were part of an organization that shared advice as they were rolling out that legislation, and we didn't see our advice reflected in their final product. They went with a 100-year kind of model, and for us, we would have been more happy with a shorter 40, 50-year kind of carbon credit regime, because that's more realistic in how we kind of manage our territory and our forests. But we are interested in it. There are some parts of our territory that we'd like to just kind of if there's moose or deer that calve there, if it's a special place for them, we'd like to protect it. And if there was a way that we could thin that forest and get carbon credits, I think that would be the best of both worlds. We'd really like to move from that simplified plantation forest towards a more diverse and resilient kind of ecosystems and ecosystem management. So just trying to look to the future, trying to position ourselves, and then trying to do that in a good way with the best kind of ecological technology that we have in front of us. So for the future forest, we're hoping that it can be shaped, by the needs of the community, and that's not only our community; it's all the communities in BC. We all have the same challenges. We all need the same, the same kind of help and resources for our families, so that we can kind of have good lives, but also take care of nature while we're doing that would be excellent. So regarding cultural stewardship, just want to balance the cultural values with modern forestry practices. Kind of looking out right now, a 40-year kind of horizon. So looking at what we can do in that period of time, that also brings benefits to our communities in the current, today. Looking at governance, Indigenous-led forest stewardship and monitoring. Our long-term vision is a balanced forest economy rooted in ecology and culture. So the future forest may not look like the past, but through Indigenous stewardship, restoration, innovation, communities can help shape a forest that are healthier, more resilient, more connected to the people who live within them. And we invite collaboration for a sustainable, community-led forest future. And Snachalia, thank you for listening to my words. Then we'll just go to any questions or comments.
Yeah, that was awesome, Doug. Thank you. I have to go in and let people turn their mics on and turn their cameras on if they want to ask direct. You guys can also feel free to type your questions in the Q&A box or in the chat if that functionality is not working for you. I saw a hand up. Matthew, do you want to go ahead?
Sorry, I was actually looking for the applause
Oh.
function. Thanks, Doug. Appreciated that talk. Yeah, I'm just forming my question still, but I'll maybe put it in the chat. Thanks.
While people are pulling their thoughts together, Doug, I wondered if you could talk a little bit about your measures of success, whatever you're willing and able to share. What does success look like in a balanced forest economy rooted in ecology and culture?
I think for our community, a short term is to see people. So the first phase would to go in to thin the kind of the piece of land. The second phase would to be find out, what can we plant in there to kind of increase that biodiversity. And then the measurement of success is if we have community members coming and using that piece of land. So I think that would be the big number.
Thanks. Very glad to hear that. Josh has a question. You are still muted.
Thanks. Nice presentation, Doug. It's really nice to see that this is really starting to, there's so many different communities that are taking this on and thinking about it across the province. And it's nice to hear about different ecosystems that this is also all being applied to. I was wondering if you guys, when it comes to carbon and soil, have you guys ever considered touching base with the Mother Tree Network or the Mother Tree Project? I know that they do really great work on carbon and soil nutrients. Yeah, just sort of wondering about that piece.
I've heard of it. I don't think we've officially kind of connected with them, but that would be something we're totally open to that. And
Mm-hmm.
they're doing good work. They're kind of based in the Lower Mainland, is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, but I think their work, there's a lot. So from what I understand is they have sort of these like sort of technicians teams that if you have funding, they can come and collect a bunch of information. And then I think it does help with building some of that carbon credit momentum. Just because I think thinning is still a somewhat debated when it comes to carbon benefits, it's a funny one to fit into because you're cutting down trees and then the calculations I think are very tough sometimes to fit it into something that becomes beneficial economically. But I think the benefits are more than just carbon from restoration and thinning work. So yeah, but I think they're hard to get a hold of, but they're a very great resource because I think they're really plugged into that world.
Yeah, I took a note and we'll follow up with them. What did you like with carbon credits? What do you think of the 100-year time window?
So I don't, I'm trying to remember because this is over a year ago. I applied for funding with the federal government because they were doing a big wetland and agriculture sort of multi-million-dollar fund to First Nations and First Nations partners. And they were trying to get you to kind of I don't remember what it was, what the timeline was, but I think it was a really short timeline that they were calculating it for. So they wanted to see benefits within several decades of it rather than an entire century. So that is an interesting concept, but I think the initial benefit, yeah, I'd have to kind of go back on my notes, but if I do find them, I'll send you the information that I found
And
for
was
it.
that like that project so like 2030? They were trying to protect
Yeah, I think it might
30%
have
by
been that.
2030, I think. And yeah,
Yeah, and then I think we never heard back from it. I don't know if anybody heard back from that funding pot
yeah. We
because there
put
was a
in an
government change at
application
the
too
time.
with a bunch of partners and it didn't,
Hmm.
including EcoTrust. It didn't really, yeah, we weren't successful. Yeah.
Yeah, neither were we, but I just never heard back from them. So I think it just, unless somebody on this call knows, I think it just sort of it seems to have disappeared.
But for me, as I started to like, we were part of an organization, um, First Nations Climate Initiative, and we got some folks to do some carbon credit modeling for us. And it was just like a desktop kind of exercise, but it gave us the kind of the basic data. But then as we started to work through that, it was a bit of a new concept. But for me, like just wrestling with that 100 years, that
Hmm.
that's multi-generational, right? And that idea of like things changing and evolving and everything like that. And it just became, I don't want to use the term, it almost like, and this would be a carbon credit lingo, the carbon gets locked up, right? But that's it. That whole land base gets locked up, right? For
Hmm.
that long period of time. And I don't know, it just seemed it from even a planning perspective, planning for 100 years, like from a multi-generational perspective, you're making plans for generations that haven't been born. They haven't had an opinion on what happens with the land base. So it just for me, my mind couldn't, even though it's not a big chunk of time, like it's not 500 years or 1,000 years, from a human perspective, it is a big chunk of time. And
Mhm.
I just couldn't, yeah, really get
It's,
behind that.
it's too bad there wasn't any space for flexibility there
Yeah,
for those
like,
timelines.
yeah, totally. And with BC, we were pushing for shorter timelines, a 40 or 50-year window, right? Let's protect this
Mhm.
forest. It'll create carbon for this period of time, but then revisit it, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
But I'll touch base with you about some contacts for the Mother Tree Project and Network so that you can maybe at least start a conversation with them too. So, yeah, I'll write you an email.
Yep. Look forward to it. Thank you.
It's a good discussion. Other questions for Doug? I'm geeking out and multitasking over here, so I'm just popping links in the chat about things people are mentioning.
And that, like that second one you've done, the Freya logging, they're really big advocates in the region. And if you do a search for them, you're going to find some news articles and some different things. And they're really taking a lead on it and pushing it forward, especially around Prince George area. So they're really doing some good work.
We are
Hey,
not
Doug, it's
sponsored, but very well. Go ahead, John.
Hey, Doug. Good to see you, and thanks for sharing your vision today. I was curious about the community heating component and the use of that thinning material for community heating, and wondering, uh, I, I've had some of the same ideas. I just wonder how complicated that is. Is that a relatively straightforward process, or is it just about the money, or like what are your thoughts around the use of that fiber after the thinning is completed?
I think if we were building a new community and we built the infrastructure for it, it would be easy, right?
Yeah.
But then when we're already have existing infrastructure and then kind of trying to make it work, that becomes more challenging. And I think if buildings already have a hydronic heating system, they're already using kind of water heating and cooling, that you could connect into that system a lot easier too, because then you'll just be helping supplementally heating that material. So yeah, I think I was looking into this, and then I realized that some of the buildings we want to protect for winter already have heating systems. So what do you do? So kind of that's where the thinking is right now. Like, how do you do it? I think there are models out there for it.
Yep.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's doable conceptually, and then actually doing it probably will be an interesting experience.
Well, and
It's,
even so, John, you're living in Vanderhoof, so you know our
yep,
winters can be challenging. I was trying to envision a grid down scenario for 2 weeks in the middle of winter, right?
yeah,
So, well, what does that mean? And you can't have backup for all the houses, so you probably need a backup for the community hall. And then going through the process, it started to be like you're creating a tarp that you could heat, and you've got like a wood boiler system, and then you've got some type of way to transfer heat from that into this kind of tarped in area. And this is strictly just emergency kind of scenario, right? But it could be done, but it's very new, I think.
yep,
Yeah.
right on. Well, glad you're thinking about it, and yeah, maybe this
Let's
will come
keep
to
thinking
pass.
about it and we'll come up with solutions, John.
Sounds good, Doug. Okay, take care.
Thanks.
I know there's at least two other people with questions or comments. I want to share. I want to hear still your voice, Dad. Put another way, you don't want me to keep asking my questions.
I'll just say, I guess, a disclaimer at the end. Like, I'm not an expert in this. Like, I'm a land manager. Forestry is just one piece of the work we do. I'm lucky that I work with some very smart and creative people. So I kind of just amalgamate all of that knowledge, as much as I can, and try to help that to kind of, help to paint a picture for folks so that we can start to see an interesting, a better future for us and nature.
I think you touched on it, but are all these sites like second growth plantations under a silviculture regime, or are there other conditions that caused an abundance of stems in the territory?
Yeah, for us, a lot of it would be, previously logged areas. If we had old growth, we're pushing old growth aside for now and trying to work through how do we work with those old growth forests and make sure that they don't become a liability for forest fires, but we're right in the middle of that. So
yeah, well, it is kind of a new way of doing things, as you said. Maybe that's why there's some hesitation. Last call, folks.
and once we do the work, we'll photo document it and video it, and then we'll circle back. So we'll keep this is just part of the story. There's more work to do, and then we'll report back once we've done some of the work.
Awesome. We have a project database if there's anything that you're able to share in that kind of a format that folks come back to. I really appreciate you taking time to give us a little peek at this facet of your work, Doug. I think there's really a growing community around the subject of winning and selective harvest for restoration benefits, and reminder that we're all part of these ecosystems we serve is always well received. So thank you for that.
I think there's different ways to do it too, right? We let industry do their thing for the last, period of time, and they're starting to move away. So maybe people can kind of start to develop a new system, a new way of doing things.
Right on. Well, Cassia has a note. Washington State has a large fund dedicated to restoration-related work. I will take a look and see if I can add it to our funding resources on our website. So again, Doug, did you have any closing thoughts for the room?
No, I really appreciate it, and really happy with the work that CERN's doing, and CNC and all the other folks. It is a community. It is evolving, and just keep up the good work, folks.
Yeah, we have to get that energy from one another. Sometimes it feels thankless, but we're stronger together. Thanks again, Doug.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Bye.